There we go. So on the bigger time frame, right, we were looking for this low. Was it going to sweep this low, or were we going to find a support and then react higher? Right, right now, as we can see, we found a support and we are reacting higher, right? And then we retraced yesterday and we are continuing higher right now. All right, so on the 1 hour, what that looked like was I wanted to see where the market would react using trend trap, right? Trend trap is a long-term trading style. We're going to look at the scanner later today too, right? At the moment, there's nothing really that the scanner is showing us, but we might get something in the next couple minutes here. We got we got about 7 seconds. So let's see what happens here. All right, so nothing just quite yet. Right, another thing to kind of look for, pay attention to when we're trading with the scanner. We want to look for different gaps in the market, right? So down here we have a gap, a fair value gap, right? We might trade into that. Up here, we also have a fair value gap that we just traded into a little bit, right? But there's still a gap there. So it's different areas that we want to pay attention to, right? Because those are areas that the market could return to before continuing higher. Because we just had this massive move to the upside. But what I wanted to kind of cover is using trend trap, we want to find support and resistance areas in the market, right? And if we look at this area right here, right, I'm going to go down to the line chart to make this a little bit easier. We can see that we have this area right here that the market has reacted multiple times off, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times now. And this time right here, this would have been a beautiful area to get into market, right? Obviously, that was a little earlier this morning for me, so I didn't get in. I unfortunately didn't go to bed until pretty late last night. Um, but it was still a nice area to be able to get in or just to watch how the market reacts, right? You don't have to get in every single time in these areas. You can just watch the market. How does it react from these zones that I draw? How does it react from, this area, this point of interest that I have in the market? Is it reacting the way that I want it to react, or do I need to adjust the way that I'm marking up my zones, right? So that's something that I was looking for. And unfortunately I missed it. But there's also another zone down here, right? We want to find two zones where the market is reacting off of. Oh, let's get rid of that one. And if we drag this over, we have markets reacting over here. Then we have 1, 2, 3 reactions here, and then we didn't get another reaction here. We reacted higher, right? So from there, we want to find um, sorry, go back to the candlestick chart. We want to find a candle where the market should react off of, or that we see the market could potentially react off of, right? We don't want a huge candle, but we want a candle at these peaks of the support, right? So the candle that I would have chose is this candle right here, right? You want to mark this up with a arrow just to show yourself that you know which candle it is, right? And if we're in a bullish environment, if the market is moving higher, we want to see a bearish candle to be our support, right? If we're looking for sells, we want a bullish candle to be our resistance point, right? And why is that? Well, because if we're pushing higher and higher and higher and higher, we won't have a pivot point or a um, support, right? If the market doesn't push lower, right, and stop here at these highs, when the market breaks this new high, this area becomes a support, right? The market can now come lower to support off of this area, right? But if we move lower first, right, or if we continue lower, this market becomes a resistance for the market to push higher. It's resisting, right? So that's a few things to kind of pay attention there, right? We want to wait for the market to support in a bullish market and resist in a bearish market. So in this case, right, without that bearish candle being printed, this market will just keep going, right? There is no pullback for that support to be printed in the market, right? So same thing goes for over here. We want to find a candle that is in our area that we want to look for a market to react from, right? In this case, we have this candle right here, right? Another bearish candle inside of our zone. And now we have two zones that the market can react off of that we can look for. Right now, we want to look for the reaction. And if we look at this here on the 15-minute time frame, we want to see, did the market create a W inside of the zone? Right? Can somebody drop a yes in the chat or a no in the chat if you think that the market created a W or if it didn't? See here. So I'm gonna see if there's anybody else in the waiting room. Yes, exactly. Right. So that's the fourth step of trend trap is find a M or a W inside of your zone with a break of the counter trend line is where you enter into the market, right? This was a classic textbook entry. It doesn't get any better than this, right? You just have to understand the 5 steps, right? Which we're going to go into after as well. Right now, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything on the scanner for the next little while here. We just had a huge push to the upside. But actually just, oh, that's crazy. It actually did give us one. As soon as this candle opened, it dropped lower and then went straight to take profit. So we'll wait for the next setup. I'm sure this will pull back lower into here. So then we'll look for a high probability setup. Well, for now, there's nothing that I like to see. I don't want to trade when the market is just taking off, right? You want to trade when the market is settled and comes to your area, right? But for trend trap, right, we see a W right here, right? We have two areas where the market came into our zone. That's what we want to see with trend trap, and then, right, we also want a break of the counter trend line, which I would draw something like this, right? Even maybe from this candle down to here, something like that, right, is also very nice. You want to have in a bearish market, you want to have this from a bear or from on a bullish market, you want a bearish candle wick that enters the market into this zone that you have to a bearish candle wick that's at the middle of the W, and then your entry point is when this W opens and closes above your counter trend line. Right? We're counteracting the trend. The trend is up. We're looking for buys. This trend is showing us that we're going down. Once it breaks that trend, opens and closes above the zone, which we had right here. This candle opened and closed above our zone. That is our entry point, right? And now for risk management, right? You're probably wondering, how do I do risk management? How does that work? You enter in the candle that's opens right after it. That's your entry zone. And the last leg of the W or the M, right? So in this case, this is our first leg right here. We move higher. This is our second leg. After that second leg, and after the market breaks the counter trend line, the bottom of the second leg is our stop loss. And then we look to aim for these highs for our full take profit. And look how beautiful that trade is playing out. Like, we are already at just under a 4-to-1 risk to reward that we played out to, right? I would aim for these highs, or even you can just aim for a 1 to 3. Right? If you just want to go for 1 to 3, that's fine too. I always aim for the highs, right? And you can do like the 1 hour highs as well. Makes it a little bit easier to see, right? But these highs here, that's what I would look to attack, or even, up here. So we trending, right? So very beautiful, very textbook setup. It was also something that I was looking at with smart money, right? If you guys are trading smart money, if you guys follow Donnie's bootcamp, right? So this is the setup that I was looking for with smart money, right? Right. Right here. So we had a sweep of liquidity, right? We took out these lows. We didn't quite take out these lows, but we took out these lows here. Then what did we do? We moved higher and we shifted in this market, right? We were bearish, 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 pulled back a little bit, bearish, bearish, boom. We now broke that bearish momentum and we are moving higher. Right now, I want to find an area in the market that we can return to that is at least a 50%. Oh, there's people in the waiting room. I'm gonna make a few of you guys co-hosts here to let some people in. But we want to see the market return to a certain area, right? With smart money, we want to see this market take off from our point of interest, right? We want to see this market take off a couple hundred pips into the right direction to show us, okay, the market is strong, we're pulling back, and now we find an area to get in, right? With smart money, we want to use our fib, right? We want to see, okay, we know that this market is trending. We want to see the market come back to an area where there's a fair value gap, some kind of order block. Somebody's trying to call me this early in the morning. Where there's a fair value gap, some kind of order block, right? Where the market can come back to, where the banks and the institutions, they are looking to, take some trades or break even on some trades that they had taken before, right? And take more by banks and the institutions are trying to position themselves, and that's where you want to position yourself too. Right. So where do they do this? They do this at minimum 50%. Right. If we don't get at least a 50% retracement, it is not considered a retracement. So we want to see a deeper retracement than that. Right. So one thing that I look for is minimum 50%, right? Minimum. But if we get something like this, right, where we see the market hit 50%, we moved higher a little bit, and then we dropped off. I'm waiting to see, like, okay, where's the market wanting to go? Does it want to continue lower? Is it just going to fly through these areas, or are we going to find some kind of strong support and then continue in our direction? Right? So 50%, I would have not entered this because also I don't have a point of interest that I want to trade out of. There's no fair value gap, right? Do we see if some kind of, let me actually clear this up completely just so you guys see. Actually, no, I want you guys to see this, how this lines up. But there is no kind of fair value gap or point of interest at this 50%, right? So I'm not entering at 50% until I get a strong confirmation, a point of interest that the market played into, which here we do not have. But what do we have lower? Right, just a little bit lower, we have a fair value gap right here, right? Just look at that, just a little bit higher than our trend trap entry. What do we have even a little bit lower? We have an order block here that lines up exactly with our trend trap entry. Do you guys see that? These last two, this high where we had that market strength, the bank, they can't just move the market higher and higher and not pull back at some point. So these areas, order sell off the market for a short period of time, enter into sell positions so that they can fulfill their buy positions, buy this market higher. And at some point, the banks need to bring the market back to at least break even on those trades, right? And take who now this is what I want to actually clear up. I can see that, but luckily with the trend trap zone, they're literally overlapping, right? You can see this one here, the bottom one. This is the trend trap zone, and this is that order block when we trade smart money. They literally line up exactly. Like you can't make this stuff up, you guys. This happened like within an hour, like an hour and a half ago. We were in the zone before we took off. And now now I can clear this. So that mark up. There's the order block. Then we want to draw that fib again. From this low. You can see what you guys said. I've never seen this before. On the fib, we want minimum 50%. But then there's the 618, the 716, and the 786. These are strong areas where the market will continue in the right direction. Not quite sure what. Let's go to drawings. Let's draw this again. Oh, it's not. Let me try and refresh this here. Do you guys have any questions in the chat so far? Does that kind of make sense what I was looking at there, right? With smart money and with trend trap, right? That's two different strategies, two trades that we could have taken from the exact same area with the proper confirmation that we were going to trade out of there. And let me try and open this up again on TradingView. Not sure what happened there. There we go. For some reason, it just went blank. Where? Right, so we got our 618, 716, and 786. These are strong areas, like I said, where the market is going to react off of, right? We need a minimum 50% reaction. But with smart money, we always want to look for a point of interest where the banks and the institutions want to return the market to, right? This is now, you see this, right? We can, even if we go in like the 4 hour time frame, right? What happened? We, it might not always be 50%, especially when we're in such a strong bullish market, right? Like, but even then, here it's still 50%. You know, like if we look at this, the market, we created this low point, then took off, created a new high. Where did we created a new all-time high and we pulled back, not quite to 50% here, but then came higher again. Now look where we are reacting off of. Right on the bigger time frame, this is the 4 hour time frame. We're reacting out of that 618, 716, 786 zone. Right. And then on the smaller kind of outlook here, where we actually want to enter now, where the current market is, we have the same thing. It came down to react from the 716 zone. Right. These are areas that we want to look for. And what is there in this area that we're reacting off of? Right. There is, would you look at that? There is a strong point of interest right here, an order block that the market left behind, a huge selling candle on the bigger time frame before making new all-time highs. Right? We can look at this at any chart and it will be the exact same every single time where these markets are reacting from, because the banks, they can't just push the market in one direction without having a pullback to a certain point, right? Because then they'll just be losing money and they won't even be able to push the market that high because there's no, sell orders on the other side. In order for the banks and institutions to trade millions and millions of dollars in these markets, if they open up, if they want to push the market into, and let's say they want to push the market higher for gold, right? And they put a $1 million lot size, right? The banks, they have a lot of money in their accounts, so they can put $1 million lot size. But in order for that to work, in order for that $1 million lot size to play out in their favor to the upside, they need at least $1 million worth of lots that are selling against them, right? In order to push that market higher. So that's what they do in these areas, right? If we go back to this 15-minute chart here, in order for them to continue this market higher, they leave this little order block behind where they also enter in sell positions to help them push their buy position that they have higher, right? They need these sellers here. They need to have selling pressure in the market to be able to push the market higher. Then once they've made their money, they're satisfied with how much profit they made, they return this market to this area to break even these trades here, right? Because they're still in losing trades at this point while the market is floating 100 pips, hundreds of pips, thousands of pips into the upside, right? Like they have $1 million lot that is making them a lot of money, but they have 150,000 lots that are selling here, which are in the negatives up here. So they need to bring this market back to this point, back to this point of interest that they left behind, to then be able to break even, make a little bit of money, and push the market even higher into the right direction that they wanted to go to start with. Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys are following there. Hopefully that is making sense. I just wanted to give you guys a quick lesson on that, why the market even moves, how the market moves. But if you look at this, like this is textbook on smart money. This is textbook on trend trap. Just very beautiful trades. So I don't really know what we're gonna do for next week with gold. It'd be very react. I'm expecting this to continue higher. Um, just what we've seen today, we're reacting out of that zone and looking to continue this push higher, but I want to see what happens because we have a strong resistance point here. All right, this is a strong resistance point. Our market reacts from this area. Is it going to punch through it today and just fly, or are we going to kind of slow down today because it's Friday? The market closes today, right? I want to see how that market reacts from this point. But very interested to see how this market reacts higher, and then if we, continue higher, make a new all-time high. If this is just our higher low, right? If we do something like this, where we now have low, high, higher low, and then make a new higher high, and then trend like this, or that's one possibility that could happen. Or are we going to push higher to kind of this resistance area and then break these lows, and then start trending lower? Right? Those are kind of my two outlooks for gold over the next few months. Right? This is going to take some time to play out. It's not going to happen, in the next couple hours. Um, but just a few different things to look at, right? You want to look at the market from both sides because the market can move against you just as much as it can move for you, right? Because the market can only move one of three directions. It can move sideways, which on the bigger time frame, we're kind of moving sideways right now. Right? We kind of have this high point and this low point. We're just trading inside of that area, right, on the 4 hour time frame. So I'd be interested to see, are we going to push higher, do something like that, right? Or are we going to break lower or push higher to then push lower? Right? Because the market can only move sideways or higher or lower. The market can't move anywhere else, right? So we have to stay patient, let the market do what it wants to do, and then kind of go from there. Let's see what the scanner is saying here. But I don't know how I feel about this. Let me just see quickly here. Oh, we got 382. This one we got 50. That's 382, yeah. I would just hold off on this right now. We're not taking this trade. I want to see how the market continues to react from this zone. Right, if we do end up pushing lower a little bit, I know kind of that was our trade for the day, was to enter off of this right here, right, with that break at the counter trend line, entry down here. But I'd be interested to see how this continues to react on the 1 minute chart. The 1 minute chart can tell us quite a lot too, depending on how different candles print as well, right? Because each candle has its own story. Here. Looking at this now, this actually would have been a good trade to take, but we are going to wait for the next setup here. Should have went to the 1 minute a little bit quicker, but sometimes it happens. This is looking at different candlestick patterns, how the market's moving on smaller time frames. It can actually tell you a lot by what a candle looks like. That if the market's going to push in a certain direction or give you a short-term bullish push or a short-term bearish push. It's if we search up candlestick patterns. There are certain patterns here, and if we open this a little bit higher, it's not what it is. Right, like how different candles look if we have a doji, spinning top, right, the morning star, evening star, dragonfly, doji. There's different areas or different candlestick patterns where the market can show you quite a lot, right? And if we see right now, we did have one of those patterns on the smaller time frame on the 1 minute inside of this area, which now the market would have actually went and hit our take profit. Right, so that was actually a trade that we could have taken, but I was a little bit slow to analyze that. So we're just gonna wait for the next one. How this market continues to print out. I also don't want to rush into anything. It's Friday. Um, we started off Monday with 150 pips in profit on these morning sessions. There's a lot of good trades throughout the week as well, um, that we could have taken. So I don't want to enter something that I'm not 100% confident in. That one we could have taken, but was just a little bit slow. So we're not going to rush into anything just yet, because now we can see that the market is, in fact, pushing lower again. So we're not entering anything in the market just yet. We want to see how does this market react from here. While we wait for this 5 minute candle to print, I will be right back. All right, let's see what's happening here. This market is continuing to push higher. One of these candlestick patterns I want to show you guys is right here. We have this doji here, right? Actually, back right here, this one, right? Followed by a bullish dragonfly, which shows us again the market wanted to push higher, didn't, created a doji, pushed lower, created this dragonfly. This is a strong area to then buy higher for the short term, right? If we see where this was, right, this candle was at the top of the candle was at 4,125.17. So that's right in our zone. And then the next one pushed a little bit lower to 23.78. And then we reacted out of that zone straight to take profit, right? Which would be 50 pips because we're scalping. Right? If we got in at 25, the trade would look something like this. Stop loss at 20, take profit at, let me just type this in, makes it a little bit easier. Entry price at 25, take profit at 30, and stop loss at 41.20. Right, it would look something like that. And click 1-to-1. We can see it reacted beautifully after we had this candlestick pattern, came back down into our zone, and then took off straight to take profit. So that was actually a pretty nice trade to take. But we didn't catch that one, so we're going to wait for something else, right? We have multiple different zones that we can look to react off of today too. Right? We could now just continue higher, create a new high, and then drop off. Right? But at any moment, we can also pull back and fill any one of these gaps that we have, right? That we looked at on the scanner. There is this gap here that we have, and then we have this gap a little bit higher as well. Right? We can fill any one of these gaps at any time, or we could also just continue higher and take these highs, right? So I'm just interested to do over the next little while, over the rest of the day as well, because it's going to tell us a lot and kind of where we can continue to get in for some trade ideas. Right, 15-minute time frame. We can also see now that we have these highs created, we can also pull a fib from this low to this high to see where is the most probable setup. Right, oh, we can see there's fair value gap, 618, 716, 786. Right, this fair value gap is just above 50%. So I'm probably going to look to enter another trade somewhere down here for buys, depending on what this looks like on the higher time frames, what kind of a reaction that we get. Right, so I'd be interested to see what this looks like. But for right now, we are not going to enter anything. Depending on how this candle closes, we will see. And if we do get a reaction from one of these zones down here, right, I would look to swing this for the rest of the day to these highs, right, and continue that trend that we're in. And this might take a little bit, right? It might take the rest of the day to get down to these areas. It might take a 5-minute candle to push down to these areas, right? We don't really know what the market's going to do, so we want to stay patient and let the market show us what it wants to do, right? The more candles that the market prints, the more data we have to analyze, the more patient we can stay with these trades, and then enter in a more or a high probability setup. Right, so we just want to wait and see what we're going to do here. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything that they may be wondering, whether it's smart money, whether it's the scanner, whether it's trend trap, any questions that you guys might have? I also want to take a look at Bitcoin as well. Um, and see where that's at, 'cause you guys know that I love trading crypto. Let me remove all these drawings here. Get a clear chart. For Bitcoin, I'm gonna start the daily time frame. We're kind of at that daily high right now. Right, we are at this daily high. Here's our daily low. That's kind of the range that I'm looking for. This is using trend trap, you guys. 4 hour time frame. All right, we have a lower low. Right, this is the lowest point that the market was at. Then we created a higher high, and then we created a higher low. Right, so this is a market that is trending higher. So we want to be buying Bitcoin. Right, so now where do we want to buy Bitcoin from? Right, that's the question. I also want to just see what gold's doing here. If we get a pullback to 41.25, I want to enter this market in a sell. Only if we get a pullback though. We're not entering right now. I'm going to look to aim for 41.10 is going to be that take profit area. And oh, it's not letting me. And 41.30 is our stop loss. So we're looking at something like this for about 150 pips. We didn't quite get that entry. But if the market comes back to our zone here, we're going to look to enter into this market. Unless this just takes off with us, then we'll just wait for the next one, which it looks like it's doing. Fortunately, we didn't get that pullback to the zone. We can see this candle closed below the zone, but we didn't get that pullback into this zone. We were off by like a couple of pips, and now we're literally at take profit number 2 on this. So that's why you just gotta be patient sometimes, right? We knew that this pullback was coming at some point, but we didn't want to get in too early, right? If we got in right here, right on this candle, and then entered, because this candle also closed below this zone, right? And then if we got in on this candle, we would have got stopped out for then the market to go. Right, so you want to just wait for those confirmations. That confirmation was we resisted off of this area, right? And we have a strong bearish engulfing candle that engulfed this whole candle. I would have liked to enter off of this zone, but now we're already over 100 pips into the right direction. So I'm gonna just wait and see here what continues to happen off this. But yeah, that would have been a nice trade if we would have got that pullback into our zone there. So let's go back to Bitcoin. Right, we are now on the 1 hour time frame chart, and we want to look for support or resistance areas where the market can trade out of. Right, first one that I'm seeing here is right here, this zone. Right, we can see you have 1, 2, 3, 4 times the market reacted. I'm looking to see if we're going to react off of this one more time to then continue higher. That secondary zone, I would say we would have something. We could do this area here again. See how the market reacts from there. Let's just see here quickly. Okay, no, we didn't get a. Be interested to see, where this market goes from here. If we get another opportunity or another opening to sell, I will look for that if we get the right confirmations. But this was kind of the trade of the day that we were looking for. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get the entry on this one. We were off by a few pips, but there's always something else that we can look for, right? Using the scanner. Let's see here on Bitcoin, just to kind of have an outlook for Bitcoin for the rest of the day and for next week as well. And these are those two zones that I want to look for. Right, we have multiple touches in this area, even supported off here before we made this push higher. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Also can support off of there to continue higher. So now I want to look for a candle that's going to be my zone inside of this area. Right, which candle do we want to use? I want to use this one here. Which we'll mark up with an arrow. That is going to be my candle that I want to see this market react off of. Right, we want to see a W to then push higher. And if we don't react off of that zone, I want to react off of this one right here. Right, and the reaction is that W, you guys. So if we to this market, I want to see some kind of W, right, with the break of the counter trend, or if we do something like this and push lower, I want to see a W like that with the break of the counter trend. All right, so our two zones that we are going to look for, I'm going to mark this up like so. Our two zones are, right, always make sure you put a price label. We're looking at 109.50. Always round this up to the nearest whole number. 109.150, and then also 107.275. Those are those two zones that we're going to look for the market to react from, and then see how that plays out. So I'll send this into the chat as well for you guys. with gold, we're just wanting to wait and see how this market's going to react from here. And then we can see for potential entries. Or we might actually run this. No, let me see in the 1 minute time frame. I want to make sure that it's a solid setup before we get into anything. Yeah, this was. How much time do we have left on this candle? 8 seconds. Yeah, I would just wait on this, to be honest. Like we did get a. Actually, we did close pretty good. You know what? We're gonna run this idea. We're gonna take sells from 41.20. For those of you guys that want to get in this as well, 41.20 is our zone. If we get that pullback, stop loss 41.25 and take profit. We're going to run this to 4,095. Oh, we just got that pullback. That was quick. Did anybody catch that? That was very quick that we just pushed into that zone. I did not catch that. That was a little too quick for me, but we're gonna look to swing this to 4,095. And we can it is now back in our entry zone. Just below actually. This is something that I'm going to look to take to 4,095. So this trade is active for those of you guys that did get into there, right from 41.20. We did get that pullback to that zone. We might get one more pullback here right now. I'm gonna look to take this all the way down to 4,095 and see how this plays out for the rest of the morning. I'd be interested to see how we're going to react from here. Did anybody get into this trade? Let me see in the chat if you guys did. Yeah, it was quick. You know, I didn't even. The first time it came in, didn't even have time to react with the second time. I did get in there. I got it a little bit lower at 41.19. But that's okay. Just make sure you have risk management, right? 41.25, using a proper lot size on your account. You don't want to over leverage. Doesn't matter what trade you take, if it's an educator's call out, if it's your own trade, the scanner, you don't want to over leverage your trading. Always make sure you use the proper lot size. But 41.20 was the entry, 41.25 is the stop loss, and 40.95 is our take profit. And once we get to 41.10, that's when I'm gonna look to put my stop loss to break even, which for me is 20 pips in profit. Right, so 40 for me it would be 41.17 would be my take profit area. But for everybody that got in, depending on where you got in, 20 pips in profit once we hit the exit one, which is at 41.15. And then 41.10 is take profit number two. And then our full take profit is at 40.95. So we'll see how this plays out. So a very nice setup here. But yeah, we'll just see how this plays out for the next couple minutes, and then we're gonna wrap up the session there. I set a limit. Yeah, we could still come back, and it is right at that entry point right now still for another entry. It's reacting higher now. Let's see how this plays out here. I'm still liking this on the smaller time frame, even the 1 minute, the way it's reacting right now. So we'll just stay patient, see how this continues to play out here. Let's see. Take a look on this 1 minute time frame. One-minute time frame. You can see that we just created a bearish dragonfly, right? You can see that we have a long wick to the upside with a very small candle body. If you guys got in this trade, we are now floating 30 pips in profit. That was a very, very nice, strong reaction on the smaller time frame. Let's see how we continue to react from here. Interested to see what happens here. We are reacting higher now again. Which is interesting considering the candle pattern that we just had here. But let's just see how this continues to play out. What do we have here? This is starting to push higher now a little bit. Very interesting how this market's moving right now, but I still very much like this idea. Even if we do end up hitting stop loss, which is always a possibility. I think this is still a nice setup that we could have taken, and we had an initial reaction to the right side, right? We were about 30 pips in profit. And now we are pushing higher again. Let's just see how this plays out. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit for the market to print a few candles on the smaller time frames to show us what it wants to do, where it wants to go. And being bullish here is always a possibility, but I'm interested to see where this goes from here. The scanner just called out buys again, but I don't know how I feel about that. I still really much like these sells. Right, if we do end up hitting stop loss, hopefully you guys all use proper risk management, but I still very much like this sell idea that we took here because this 5 minute candle, even though the scanner calls out a buy here, this candle, we have a wick to the downside and a wick to the upside with a small candle body, so it's very indecisive. It doesn't really know where it wants to go. So this could go either direction right now, right? We could see this drop off or we could see this pull higher. So hopefully you guys all use proper risk management. I would not get into the market right now. But if you got in, um, then we're going to ride this out and see where this market goes. And so once we hit 41.15, if we get the right direction of this market, 41.15, that is where I'm going to look to move my stops to break even on this trade. See, we have market is very indecisive right now, you guys. As you guys can see, we have a lot of different candles here that we see the market print. But yeah, let's just wait and see how this plays out. But 41.15, if we get that, I'll be moving my stops to break even. Um, and then looking to ride this down to 4,095 for the rest of the day. But other than that, I won't be looking for anything on gold. We kind of waiting to see what's going to happen from here. If we're going to get these pushes lower, maybe next week we're going to look to buy out of this area, depending on what the market is doing. But as of right now, looking to take this trade to 4,095 if we get this market to react in our direction, which right now it's not really doing. But I don't think the market knows what it wants to do right now. Very interesting. There's a lot of wicks and not very big candle bodies that we're printing right now. Like wicks to the upside, wicks to the downside. It's kind of all over the place. So yeah, like I said, once we get to 41.15, I'm still very confident that we're gonna see this market drop. 41.15 is where I'll be looking to move stops to break even and then have a risk-free trade from there. We're roughly right back at the entry zone right now. Let's just see how this continues to play out, right? Sometimes it takes a few candles for the market to play out, depending on which way it goes. Right now we have a strong bearish candle close there on the 1 minute. Let's see how this continues to react. Oh. So we're now 20 pips in profit again. If you got in at 41.20. Now 30 pips. And once we hit 41.15, move stops to break even, and then let the rest of the trade play out in our direction in our favor. This might take a little bit to play out, so I think we'll just end the session there, but just make sure to follow up on your trades. Like I said, if we hit 41.15, which it looks like we are going to, make sure to move your stop loss into profit, at least 10 or 20 pips. So you're not losing out on any money, right? Which is actually reacting right now. So let's actually move stops to break even now. As we said that, it actually moved into profit, right? Where we wanted it to react from. And now we just run a risk-free trade down to 40.95 is what I'm looking to aim for. So congratulations if you guys got into this trade. Right, we are now floating, depending on where you got in, anywhere from 50 to I have one position that's 40 pips in profit, right? But we hit take profit one with stop loss and break even, and looking to let this trade play out to 4,095. Right, so congrats to everybody who got in. If you guys just took a trade to first take profit, that's fine too. But we are now floating well into profit, and I think that's where we're going to end the session there. So hopefully you guys all learned something new again today. We are now 50 pips in profit. Stop loss on break even on our trade. We covered some smart money, we covered some trend trap, and overall was a very, very good session today. So congrats to everybody who participated in the trade. We're now 60 pips in profit. Well, I hope you guys all have a blessed Friday, and I'll see you guys all live next week on Monday. And actually, on Sunday, we have a huge announcement inside of the Revolt community. So be there on the family call at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be talking about a free trial that we are going to be doing within the Revolt community. So definitely make sure to invite some friends for that and be there for yourself as well. But I will see you guys all on Sunday, and then Monday morning we'll be back for another session. Hope you guys all have a good one.